This Shaw TV special presentation brought to you in part by Canada Safeway, helping today for a better tomorrow. Cardel Homes, official home builder to the Calgary Stampeders, Roughnecks, and Vipers. Cardel Homes, really well built. Alberta Print Services, your one-stop shop for all your print needs. And Chiron, happy to support the 2006 Awards Gala. Well, good evening and welcome to the second annual Mountain of Heroes Awards Gala. So nice to have you all here with us tonight. I'm Kelly Abbott, your host from Shaw TV, and joining me tonight on stage to take care of some of the duties is my good friend Beesley from Jack FM.
Thank you, Kelly. This evening is really all about the heroes and the difference that they make each and every day in our lives, not only to you personally, but also to everyone here in Calgary and the surrounding areas, and we can't thank you enough.
All right, now tonight we're going to be honoring 5 of Calgary's finest heroes, and we're going to hear their stories of courage, passion, dedication, inspiration, and true heroism.
And the beautiful part, the benefactors tonight, proceeds from tonight's events will be directed to the cystic fibrosis research. At this point, we thought you might enjoy learning a little bit about how the funds from last year's dinner were actually utilized. Please direct your attention now to the screens. There are about 3,500 Canadian children and adults living with cystic fibrosis. The lung disease, which fights the lungs' immune responses, often claims the lives of its victims before they reach the age of 40. But research funded by the Mountain of Heroes Foundation being done right here in Calgary has the potential to extend those lifespans considerably. Dr. Harvey Rabin headed up the committee that chose researcher Alicia Montgomery to be the first winner of the Mountain of Heroes Foundation studentship.
We had more than one applicant, and they were all very good, and they all had very good research ambitions within the realm of cystic fibrosis. It's very nice, very rewarding to know that there is a lot of cystic fibrosis research activity going on at the University of Calgary and the Health Sciences Centre and the Faculty of Medicine. Alicia stood out as a mature student with a bit more maturity with regard to her experience. She's had a publication, an abstract publication already, and we thought her project was of value, and the lab that she works in with Dr. Chris Modi is doing very good work. And we're very pleased that Alicia has accepted the studentship, and very honored that she's going to be present at the dinner to accept it.
25-year-old Alicia Montgomery is very excited about her research. If she succeeds, it could make a huge difference in the lives of thousands of people.
Normally, people fight infections like pneumonia, and they're able to clear the bacteria and make it go away. And the lungs come back to normal. In cystic fibrosis, they're unable to do that, and the bacteria persist.
This bacteria kills an important immune cell that's important in fighting infections like colds and the flu. And if we could figure out how this bacteria is killing your immune cells, it would certainly benefit cystic fibrosis patients. Well, it would certainly be great. I couldn't imagine what it would feel like, but certainly something to hope for.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alicia Montgomery atop the Mountain of Heroes.
I'm very grateful to the Mountain of Heroes Foundation. They've provided me with a great opportunity to study such an interesting problem for cystic fibrosis patients, and I hope that I can make a difference in this field.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we please ask you to join us in welcoming the Director of the Institute of Infection, Immunity, and Inflammation from the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Calgary, Dr. Paul Kubes, to the stage to enlighten us a little bit about the Institute.
Okay. Well, first of all, if I could have my first slide. So I'd like to begin by both thanking and congratulating Nikki for the wonderful job that she has done to bring us all together and organizing this wonderful function. And I think also I'd like to thank all of you for coming out, taking the time and the care that is required for such a wonderful event. Now, when I first was asked to give this talk, I got to tell you, Nikki was very tough. She emailed me 3 rules, and the first was that I should not wear flannel. The second rule was that I needed to be entertaining, and the third rule said that I should be funny. So I went home and I told my wife, and she helped me with the flannel bit, but then she wanted to let you know about something. Could I have the next slide? I'm a research scientist, and so apparently by definition, next slide, I have no sense of humor. And actually, she was worried because I was given 5 minutes to speak. Next slide. And she's worried I could bore you to tears in about 5 minutes. I'm only going to speak for 4. Next slide, please. And so I am the director of the Institute of Infection, Immunity, and Inflammation. And I'm very honored to be able to partner with the Mountain of Heroes Foundation in what I think is a very, very worthwhile cause. I'd like to just tell you a little bit about our institute. Next slide, please. We have 4 major themes, and the first theme is infectious disease. Next slide, please. And as you can imagine, we've got a lot on our plate. We've got a number of the emerging infectious diseases like SARS, West Nile. We have issues of BSC, hamburger disease, for example. Next slide. And those may not be directly relevant to cystic fibrosis, but certainly we have a major endeavor in trying to understand some of these antibiotic-resistant microorganisms. And at this point, I just wanted to let you know that Dr. John Connolly, shown here, refers to him as the superbug here. Dr. John Connolly is the co-director. He's the head of medicine, and he has really led the charge against some of these really nasty bugs. Next slide, please. Our second theme, next slide, please, is inflammatory lung disease. And again, this theme really caters to cystic fibrosis. Next slide, please. And I just want to highlight 2 people. You saw Chris Modi here in the video. He's Alicia's supervisor, and Harvey Rabin, who's the director of the Cystic Fibrosis Clinic. I should say these 2 people give of their time to see patients as well as do wonderful, wonderful research, and so we're very proud of them within the Institute. Next slide, please. We have two other themes. We have an intestinal diseases theme as well as autoimmunity and transplantation. And again, both those themes do cater to some of the issues that cystic fibrosis patients have to deal with. Next slide. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to tell you about Alicia's work in 1 minute. Okay? And what you see here is a white cell, all right? And what you see here are all red cells, and that little tiny dot, that's the bug that's causing the problem. And what Alicia's interested in is how is this white cell interacting with this little bug? Could you roll the video, please? And so now what you're going to see is this white cell, and it's after that bug, and that bug is running for its life. And you can see, it can see where it is. It's going after it. Come on, catch it. Hurry up. You can see it really does know where that bug is, and eventually it will catch it, and it will destroy it, or at least try to destroy it. And this is where Alicia's work is so important. She's identified molecules released by that bacterium that actually kill this white cell. And so you can understand the importance of that, because if we can now target those molecules, then we will be able to preserve the white cells that kill the bacteria. We win the war. Next slide, please. Okay, I want to finish off by telling you a wonderful, wonderful story and encouraging you to continue to fundraise. And the story I'm going to tell you about is a fly researcher. Now, most of you are probably now thinking about Cronenberg's film, The Fly, and that where he converted, a scientist converted himself into a fly. It's nothing like that, okay? What I'm going to tell you about is something very interesting. About 10 years ago, Jules Hoffman in France was trying to understand how wings grow on flies. Now you're thinking, how is that at all relevant? Okay. And what he did was he removed a gene out of these flies. Next slide, please. And the next morning when he came back, next slide, you can see this rug on these flies. This rug is fungus and bacteria. His flies were dropping like flies. Okay, next. Jules Hoffman, though, was a very smart man, and what he discovered was that this toll molecule was actually responsible for identifying bacteria and fungi. How does this pertain to humans and human research? Next slide, please. Over the last 10 years, next slide, please, we've identified 12 new toll proteins in humans. Next slide. 20 additional related proteins. All of these proteins help you tell your body you've got bacterial infection, you have virus infection, you have fungus infection. These are incredibly important proteins. Just as an example, next slide, please. There's a mutation in one of these proteins that causes inflammatory bowel disease in a lot of patients. There's a mutation in another protein that leads to sepsis. Next slide, please. And so there's now numerous clinical trials going on 10 years later. Next slide, please. Now, is toll important in CF? Well, I just want to finish off by further highlighting Alicia's work. What Alicia has looked at is how is it that that microbe is killing that white cell? And she has found that one of the receptors, one of these toll receptors, is where this protein is hitting the white cell and killing it. So now she knows the molecule and the receptor. And I think she's going to really lead in this area. And I think I'm very proud to be partnering with the Mountain Heroes Fund to sponsor Alicia. Next slide, please. I just want to thank you very much for your time and your efforts. And I certainly look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Our thanks again to you, Dr. Kubes, for sharing your knowledge and insight with us. It is of great knowledge to know that our support and your support of this event really does have a far-reaching impact.